Right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Helena Rodriguez. I am the events manager for the State Chamber. So I'm so excited that you're here and interested in applying for our Superstars in Business program this year. It is definitely a very beloved program, and we're excited to kick it off. So without further ado, actually some logistics really quickly. There is a chat option at the bottom. If you have any questions for our panelists along the way, feel free to submit your questions to the chat box. We'll have some time at the end for an open Q&A. You'll also be able to come off mute if that's what you prefer to do to ask any direct questions to our panelists. I'll also review some just timeline details at the end, date, how to submit, etc. So stay posted on that. And also this is being recorded, so you can go back and watch. All righty, without further ado, we have Joe Nadell, who's going to be moderating this workshop this morning. Joe is the Vice President of Finance at Colonial Parking. He's been on our Superstars in Business committee for 4 years, and he is this year's chair. So we love Joe, and he's great, and we can't wait to hear how this goes. So Joe, kick it off for us.
Thank you, Helena. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully this is helpful in your journey to completing this Superstars in Business application. For the past 23 years, the State Chamber and members of this planning committee have been working hard and tweaking this application as things come up and things change. Last year, we unveiled a new and improved application designed to challenge businesses and nonprofits to look harder at themselves, evaluate their organizations, and see what they can do to put their best foot forward when applying. We're proud of all the Superstars winners over the years, and we look forward to selecting the 2021 Superstars in Business winners. To that end, we've put together this workshop to help you understand the application, give you a little bit of tips and guidance on how to do it properly. We've got 4 panelists here, all with varying degrees of experience in this committee. We've got Mike Vander, Chris Scarpetti, Grace Stockley, and Krista McLaughlin. I would like to open up to them so they can introduce themselves and maybe just give a quick update on their experience on the committee. So I'll turn it over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Joe. So yeah, Mike Vander. I'm a sales and marketing vice president with a company called Environmental Alliance. So environmental engineering, we're right in Wilmington, Delaware. Been involved with the chamber forever, been involved in Superstars in Business as an attendee in 2010. We applied in 2011 and actually won. And ever since then, I've been part of the Small Business Alliance and been exclusively involved in Superstars in Business for the last 4 years on the planning and selection committee. Over to you, Chris. Is he on?
I think we might have lost Chris.
And our panelist is missing. So we'll move on to Grace Stockley.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Grace Stockley. I'm Vice President of Marketing with Fidelity Trade Incorporated, also located in Wilmington, Delaware. I've been involved with the Chamber for several years. I serve on the Board of Governors and currently co-chair the Small Business Alliance. But this is my first year being involved with the Superstars in Business committee, so new to it. Kick it over to Krista. On mute.
I did the ultimate foul on Zoom. I'm sorry. Well, look, I got it out of the way. There we go. It's finished. It's kind of like falling at the Oscars. I took care of it. So good morning, everybody. My name is Krista McLaughlin. I am the marketing manager with Wisman Giordano and Associates, a public accounting firm in Newark. This is my first year serving on the committee, but I've been on the other side of the fence writing applications for the past 2 years. Just want to thank the Superstars committee for having me on, and I look forward to answering any questions you have.
Thanks, Krista. And I'm sure we're working to get Chris back on the Zoom.
I'm back.
Oh, there he is. There he is. All right.
All right. So I take it it's my turn, right?
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Chris Scarpetti. I am a commercial banker at Wisfis Bank. Been working in the community for about 25 years. I've been part of this committee for, I think this is my 8th or 9th season on the Superstars committee, and I've been part of the selection committee for, I think, all of it, actually. So I've seen a lot of applications over my Superstars career, and I look forward to being part of the panel discussion with everyone today.
Thanks, Chris. As you can see, we've got varying degrees of experience. Everyone will have good knowledge to impart upon you as we go through this discussion. So let's start with the basics. There are two different applications. I want to make sure that's clear. There's one for businesses and then a different, unique one for nonprofits. There are some similarities between them, but there certainly are some differences too, because obviously they operate differently. There are some basic rules we ask every applicant to follow, and they're all outlined on the first page of the applications. But if you have any questions, certainly feel free to ask now or at the Q&A or throughout your entire application process. There are a couple requirements, pretty simple requirements to being eligible to even apply. You have to be a member of the state chamber. You have to be in business for a minimum of 3 years, and you have to have fewer than 150 full-time employees and as a small business. Our panelists are here because they are part of the selection committee. So they are part of the group that will review your application and grade it and determine the winners for the 2021 Superstars in Business. Krista represents an organization that has won the Award of Excellence twice in 2017 and 2019, and then was a Superstars in Business winner in 2020. I think she'll be able to show the progression and how important it is to do the application, how important this workshop is. I think she'll have a little bit of comment on last year's workshop and how it benefited her. She is our resident expert in completing the application. So I'll turn it over to you, Krista.
Okay, thanks, Joe. And I'm off mute now, so that helps. Okay, so the short answer to his question is don't be discouraged. Like Joe said, we are a 2-time Award of Excellence winner, and then we won last year. And we were an Award of Excellence winner in 2019. So frankly, when I went to write the 2020 application, I was more probably nervous and focused about 2020 because I really wanted to bring it home. And I think the key to my success is that I attended the panel, the workshop last year, and then I watched and rewatched. Like, I think most of the YouTube hits for the State Chamber were probably me rewatching the workshop over and over again last year. And I made notes of everything. I honestly turned it into a checklist. And then if you've applied previously, I actually think you have a leg up because I took the feedback from the panel to heart. Like, my 2019 application was solid. I'm not going to say it wasn't, but when I looked at what they wanted, I was like, right, there were, I could have strengthened that. I could have strengthened that. So, take that as an advantage, embrace the comments. Don't look at them as a critique, look at them as recommendations. And I literally made a list and I crossed off each point as I put it into my application. So the moral of the story is don't be discouraged, be motivated, bring it home.
Thank you. I think that's good advice, Krista. And I would agree. I think those that have applied previously probably have a leg up, but I wouldn't be discouraged if you've never done it either. We've certainly had some winners that are first-time applicants. So I want to talk to the panelists about some of the what they would qualify as a good structure of a good application, and maybe what some of the don'ts are when doing an application. We have a word count limit of 450 words per question with a total of 8 pages. Mike, can you kind of talk about that a little bit more and the importance of that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can't go over 450. I think actually a great question for Helena. Does the application let you go over 450? Like, could you keep typing if you wanted to?
You can keep typing if you want to, but I will say that I always do a word count on all of the questions.
Okay. So advice, from when I did it 10 years ago, and just looking at applications over the last couple of years, I always do it in Word, where you can do a quick word count real quick, check, see what you're doing. And I would focus more on with the word count limit. It doesn't have to be 450. It doesn't have to be a narrative, but just the main thing is to throw at, like, let's say, have some passion for it. You're doing this for your company. You've had success this year. That's why you're applying for this award. With the word count, it can be short and sweet if you answer the question. That's the thing. Answer the question. What the selection committee is looking for. Some of the folks, we're the easy ones on the selection committee. There's some really like crazy people, and they're like, okay, relax. Like when we're doing the selection review of how stringent, like they're a proctor in an exam. Like, holy cow. So it can be short and sweet. Just make sure you answer each question individually and focus on a response to that question. So sometimes we've seen applications in the past say the same answer for multiple questions when it's not necessary. Focus on that question, hit it, and then you'll have a chance to, you know, really go to the next question and focus on that, hit it, and then go to the next one. But that's, yeah, that'd be my advice. It doesn't have to be 450, and it doesn't have to be, you know, a long drawn out narrative. Another quick tip I would say is, and we've seen this in past applications that have won, if there's an opportunity when you're typing this out to bullet a section, that helps out a lot too, because instead of reading a long narrative, here's how we engage with our customers. Bullet, bullet, bullet. That goes a long way.
Thanks, Mike. Krista, you have anything to add to that?
Just a couple things. I mean, there's that old adage, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one. And I think, you know, it's a lot of work to condense down to what you want to say. And it's a really good exercise to do it. Now, in the drafting process, write everything. Write 4,000 words if you want, and then take a hatchet to it. And then you'll just have the true essence of what it is you're trying to deliver. And to Mike's point, you know, there's always a way to rewrite a sentence, always. You know, maybe your paragraphs need to be reordered to help make your point clearer. I would absolutely encourage a bulleted list. If you have a love of adjectives, this is not the place to embrace that. You know, let the adjectives go. And, you know, in kind of, if you think of it in terms of sports, like, you know, you don't get extra time in a game because your next play is going to be really, really good. So I would say, you know, make everything fit within the confines of the word limit.
Great advice. Thank you. As I mentioned, there are two different forms. So I want to take a second here and talk about the business form, Form A. I do want to point out all the questions have what we call superstar suggestions. They're kind of a little bit of guidance and help to help you craft an answer and steer you in the direction that the committee may be looking for. They're there to help you, so don't disregard those superstar suggestions. And a lot of times we get questions on metrics and tools. Should I put the metrics in there? What should I put? What's not good? So and why is it important for that? So I think I'd like to ask maybe the panelist that works at the bank here, Chris, why is it important to share metrics in the application, and what does it do? What metrics is the committee looking for?
Yeah, so I get picked on a lot as being a banker. I guess I kind of bring that approach to the application often. You know, at the end of the day, you know, business is number oriented, right? It's certainly how we measure things at the end of the day. And we see far too many quality companies fall short in the application because they don't explain themselves very well and how they measure their business. Now, every business is different, and how people measure their businesses are different. But don't make the mistake of feeling like nobody wants to see numbers. They do want to see numbers at times. We're not asking for personal information. We're not asking you to, you know, to bare your soul in the application, but you know how you measure your business on a day-to-day basis. So it's important that the committee understands how you measure your business, and then take it a step further. You know, what are those metrics? How have they changed over time? You know, what are you striving to do? You know, people mentioned the narrative, and it's a written application. But there is a way for you to pick the key metrics of your business that you look at on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, however it may be. You know, make sure you get them in there. You know, there's room to kind of add an attachment. I mean, some folks have made the decision to add a chart or a graph. I mean, we're not looking for 40 pages of that stuff, but don't not put numbers in there because you think it's a narrative. It's important that we understand how you think about your business. In terms of which ones you do, I mean, look, obviously there's the main ones. There's sales, you know, there's profit, there's gross margin, but, you know, there's also operating metrics, you know, how you might manage employee type metrics, how you might measure an impact. Say you're a not-for-profit, you know, how you might measure an impact in the community. That's all things that that kind of set you apart from your kind of, you know, competition in that selection committee room.
Good, great, thank you, Chris. So that touched on the business side and the financial metrics, if you will, that we're looking for in that application. For the nonprofits, it's a little different. I would like to point out, we do have some on our selection committee and the ones that specifically be reviewing the nonprofits applications a little more closely. We do have people that are involved in nonprofits and understand how that business operates, but there are some that aren't working in nonprofits that are on the committee. How, we know that the nonprofits behave a little differently in terms of income and expenses, got expense allocations. And on top of all that, nonprofits also are mission driven a little differently than a for-profit business would be. How do you like to see those measured, Chris? And how can that be included in responses on the application?
Yeah, so for not-for-profits, you talk about mission, right? So the number one issue, you're trying to fill a need or a gap in the community, right? So for starters, what is that need or gap, and why is it a need or a gap? So usually some information around that, and then you kind of bolt on what your organization does to help, to help remedy or fix those gaps in the community. So, we look at things like expense allocation, fundraising. I started alluding to it in my last answer, but really, how do you measure the impact of what you're doing in the community? It's one thing to sell a widget and say, I made it for X, it cost me this much to make, and this is my profit. But you guys, not-for-profits aren't thinking that way, right? So there's outreach in the community. How do you know what you're doing is helping the community? And then, the management expenses certainly come into play there. And there are some of the key things. We give you some helpful, kind of notes in the actual application. But for not-for-profits, we're more focused on impact, how you measure the impact, and we're focused on kind of your expense ratios. How much of that money through fundraising or donations or however you choose to bring revenue into your organization, how much of that is going back out into the community?
Great, thank you, Chris.
I hope I didn't lose you guys again because you're all frozen on my screen.
I can hear you, Chris. You're okay, frozen, good. But I can certainly hear you. And so as you can see, there are some differences. We do look at them differently. We understand nonprofits are different than businesses. Hopefully that little bit of guidance
good.
helped you determine, cleared up some of those questions maybe for you. One of the big, I've been on this panel for 4 years or in this committee for 4 years. And I think one of the questions that I look at most, I'm an accountant, so I'm a numbers guy, but I like to also see challenges and adversity that companies face and how they dealt with that. And that's been a main question in the application for the 4 years, at least that I've been here. I'm sure longer than that. But I do want to stop there and point out everyone's had challenges over the last 12 months due to the pandemic we're in and hopefully getting out of sooner rather than later. So we've decided to separate out this question in two questions. One being, how did your organization, your business deal with COVID and the challenges that presented? But there were also, during the course of this 12 months, just operational challenges that popped up that had nothing to do with COVID. So we're looking for the applicants to certainly explain to us how they faced COVID-related challenges, but we're also interested in just operational challenges or something non-COVID related. So I want to make sure we're clear that we do want to see how companies manage through both of the crisis that we've all gone through and crises that happen to each business and organization individually. So I think things that can help you explain those challenges or adversity or something positive that happened. What stood out? What's unique to your industry and the challenges that it presents. I don't know, Mike, I don't know if you have any comments on maybe how your industry, maybe give an example of something you would use or just a general comment since you've been involved in this selection committee for a number of years. And we've had this question, whether it's COVID or not, for that entire time.
Yeah, so it's lucky question number 7, lucky number 7 in the application. So we split in part A and B. We actually this was such a big talking point in the last year's selection committee that we had to have a subcommittee to talk about question 7 amongst ourselves. So it's important, and just know that, take a note, I really got to answer question 7 well. in terms of answering Joe's question, you have A and B. A is your COVID. So we were afraid that everyone would answer how they overcame COVID, and we got a PPP loan. We used it to pay for this. Now we have more resources, and now we do this. So we have part A, talk about how you overcame COVID, how your company, the culture. I think some good ways to answer that would be, or good ways to answer it, but talking about your culture. How did it affect your people in your company? I think that's really important. And then how did it affect your business? And then how did you overcome that with COVID? And then part B is just general challenges in your industry. So if you face, like my industry is environmental engineering, we had new regulations come out and everyone was affected about it. How did we overcome those? And how did I think the big thing is talking about your people. How did your culture, your team, the people you work with on a day-to-day basis, and having, your leadership, how did they affect change to overcome those challenges? I think that's a big part. And just know, like I said before, put a star next to number 7 when you're writing this out. That is a very important question to give it your all with that one, for sure.
Thanks, Mike. And because, as Mike so eloquently pointed out, this is a very important question, I think I'd like to ask each of the panelists to kind of give their take on this question and how, what they're looking for maybe when they review the application. Krista, do you have some thoughts on that?
I do. I take one point is that your challenge doesn't have to be past tense. It could be something you are currently dealing with, and it doesn't have to be a short-term problem. It could be a long-term problem as well. So what you really want to show the committee is that you know what the problem is, you have a strategy to deal with it. So show us your creativity, show us your strategy, and don't worry about anybody else's challenge. Your industry doesn't have to match industry B, industry C, industry D. It's your story, your plan, your solution, and that's what you need to share with the committee. Great.
Grace, now I know you're first time on this committee, but I'm sure you're no stranger to challenges and overcoming them. I think as a fresh set of eyes on the application, what's something you'd be looking for as a response to this question?
Well, we broke it into 2 pieces, right? So we have the COVID and the non-COVID. I think everybody can come up with something for COVID, but with your non-COVID, you don't want to have to limit it to last year, right? It's important to know that even what Krista's saying, you could be going through something currently and ongoing, but it could be something that you have overcome, 2 years ago. Not necessarily want to go back 10 years or, really dated, but it could be something that you went through in 2019 or 2018 that's current, relevant and needs to be shared. I think also for COVID, you would have to come up with something. You can't approach it like you don't have a challenge. Everybody went through something, whether it's small or large, and you don't want to look at it as a weakness, not like we didn't go through anything. You can come up with something, is what I'm trying to say. You can come up with something, either it's staffing, whether you think it's a large problem or a small problem, but the important thing is that you overcame it and how you overcame it.
Great. I think that's an excellent point there, Grace. Chris, as our senior member of the committee here, I'll let you wrap up this question and what you're looking for. Did we lose Chris again?
He did it again.
He's frozen. Or no, he's not. I can see his hands moving. This is disturbing. Like he's judging all of us right now. This is the test. This is question 7, everybody. This is our challenge.
Yeah, so I think people have hit on most of the finer points there. I mean, I think Mike said the key word is overcome. What we're really looking for in a narrative is how you overcome the challenge. Some applicants want, can you hear me? I apologize. Clearly some internet issues out here today.
No worries, Chris. No, I think
my back, perhaps.
Kind of.
No.
I think I'll follow up and try to finish up what Chris may have been saying. Is we don't want to just hear about an issue you had. We do want to hear that, but we want to hear what you did to overcome that issue. And we don't, we're not looking for manufactured challenges. You know, everyone, as Grace pointed out, everyone faces challenges, whether big or small. We want to hear about all of them, the ones that impacted your business and how you were able to succeed despite that challenge. So I guess I'll move on from question 7. I think we've hammered that one pretty good, but obviously if anybody has any questions now or throughout your process, please reach out and ask. As I mentioned before, the panel in front of you has got significant experience with these applications. They've seen many over the years, especially Chris, and a few of them have even written a few. So they know what a good application is. They know what can be improved upon. And a lot of the things that they're looking for have already been outlined because we have been tweaking this year after year and taking our experiences with it and trying to make this application better. There are the superstar suggestions, as I mentioned, that they should help guide you and into the direction that we're kind of looking for each answer. But I'd like each of the panelists to take a few minutes and kind of embellish on what advice you would impart in general, I guess, as far as completing the application the way the committee is looking for. I know that's kind of a very open-ended general question, but I'm putting it out there.
I'll take a stab at this first. So when I did our application in 2011, I did take, like Chris is actually great advice. I threw too much on a Word document, and my answers were like 1,500 words just because I kept typing, talking about all things. But then you use that time. I actually sat down with our leadership, our 2 principals, our firm, and we went through each question, and they're like, well, why don't you talk about this? Remember when we did this? So it helped me really narrow in on the response to that question and the best way to answer it. So I had all my material, you know, for how to respond to it. And then I just kind of, you know, brought it all home, like Chris said. The one thing we don't want to see is you go to your website, like, what challenges do you face? And you cut from your website and paste it in the answer. Don't do that, because it's really obvious. And I said, like I said, there's some proctors and sticklers on the selection committee that call that out every time. And, you know, it is what it is. So they kind of tend to obviously not to win. It's the folks that actually, maybe you take that material as a starting point, and then you like I said, talk to your senior leadership, talk to other folks in your company. I mean, when I did it, again, I talked to our senior leadership, but I also went around I'm the sales guy. I went around and talked to our project managers and some of our other staff just to get a vibe for what they thought. What do you think about this? You know, when this happened last year, you know, what did your department, what did accounting do to overcome? So I think that's important. You know, again, don't cut and paste. It's not that website. We can look at your website right now. Take some time to maybe use that as a starting point, and then throw your culture and your passion into it.
Great. Krista, you have anything?
I do. I'll chime in, just piggyback a little bit about time, and then a word or two about editing. As for time, Mike's right. You have to give this application its due. I mean, I probably wrote the application in my head for a couple weeks, just thinking about stuff and just like randomly jotting down notes. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, jot down a note, making dinner, jot down a note, because it's really, I think it's actually a really healthy process to go through this, because I think if you're an employee, thinking about all the great things about your company really validates why you work where you work. And then if you're an owner, you get to think about like, wow, this is all the stuff that I've built. That's really amazing too. So, I mean, it's actually a very affirming process. It's a lot of work, but it's an affirming process. And just a word about editing, no one on earth can edit their own work, period. It's a statement of fact. So read it aloud, read it to other people, read it to your dog. If you're anything like me, it's tough to have other people read your writing, but swallow that down, hand it off, because people really help you be like, wow, you're burying the lead. This needs to go up top. Or to Mike's point, like really like work with your senior leadership. Also, it's courtesy to give everybody enough time. If you need something from them, like you need metrics from your accounting division, or don't ask them with a day's notice. Like that's not a good way to build camaraderie. Also, just a personal tip, if you are a little bit like, I'm not sure where my commas go or where colons go, because punctuation matters, you can use Grammarly online. You can just copy and paste your stuff into Grammarly. There's a free version and a paid version. It and I have a battle about the Oxford comma, but that's a personal fight. But aside from that, Grammarly is a great resource. That's all I'm gonna say about Oxford commas.
Excellent editing tips. Thank you. I think I jotted some of those tips down myself. Grace, do you have any, comments on the application, what you may be looking for in general as a first-time selection committee member?
Krista took it. I'm stickler for grammar and spelling and punctuation. So just being my first time on, I did have an opportunity to review a couple good applications and not so good applications, and that's definitely something that stuck out to me in reviewing those. So the other thing that I would add, kind of to Mike's point, is like the uniqueness of your answer, coming up with something creative and unique to your business, not just the industry, but to your business specifically, or nonprofit.
Great, thank you. Did we get Chris back, or is he? All right.
I'm back. Yeah.
All right. You have anything to throw in on that, Chris?
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, not to belabor points, but to me, the best applications are almost like a living document. I mean, you go through this exercise leading up to Superstars event, but this thing should, you have a winning application in your hand when you can pick it up 6 months from now and you think, wow, this thing really resonates. It really still tells a story of my business. It helped me improve my business. The metrics and the impact and all the things we talk about that we want to see in an application are still relevant for you as you kind of operate your business long past this award ceremony happens. So you know your business the best. The winning applications are the folks who can really, in a kind of a pithy way, but with meaning, drive home what their business is all about and why it's so important to the industry they're in and the community they serve. They're the applications that tend to rise to the top. And when we get in that room, it happens very quickly. I'm always amazed at kind of how the sausage is made in the selection process. And there's a lot of people in the room, but winning applications very quickly rise to the top. So when you're done typing this thing up, you'll kind of know how you did. If you could think, if I pick this up 6 months from now, is it still a relevant document to help me manage my business and think about my business?
Excellent. Excellent. Now I know I'm the moderator. I'm not technically a panelist, but I have been on the committee for a couple of years. A couple just tips I wanted to throw out there myself. To Mike's comment about the cut and paste, that's definitely something we're not looking for. Speak from your heart. Let your company's personality come out, and that'll really help shine a light on your application. And then a tip for those of you that may be franchises that are going to apply, that's okay. Certainly if you're a national franchise and your headquarters even outside. But what we definitely are looking for is your Delaware-based operations and a strong focus on that. Being a franchise certainly is not a negative, but we definitely, being the Delaware State Chamber, we're definitely focused on the impact the business may have in Delaware. So I just want to make sure I pointed that out there. So I know we talked about metrics and stuff, Chris, but just real quick, some people actually put real financial numbers in there. I do want to make a comment that if we get any kind of financial data, that's kept strictly confidential. But anything you're looking for, Chris, or anybody else, as far as financials go in this application?
You don't need to attach your financials. We've had people do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But think in terms of broad strokes, right? Sales. We all talk about margin in business all the time. Talk about maybe new markets that we're looking to get into, how we're measuring our success in those markets. Profits, certainly. We don't want Superstar who 2 years from now is no longer a business, right? So we do look at the kind of the credit, if you will, of a company. Its ability to be here long term. We look at competition a little bit sometimes. People will talk about if you're in a hyper competitive industry, how you differentiate yourself from the competition. Again, data matters and how you do that. But they would be some examples of things to have in your application to help when you think about metrics and financial impact.
Okay, thank you. I do want to also remind the listeners here that, attachments can be valuable in supporting your application. They're not the application themselves, but they certainly can provide a basis of support. If I'm not mistaken, Krista, whose company won last year, I believe she had pretty slick attachments with her application. So they definitely can help. We're not looking for just your standard marketing materials, but certainly something that can help set your company apart. Whether and it can be visual, that's fine. I think it is beneficial. Anyone have comments on that? I know we have a question and answer, but I don't know the answer to the question just popped up here, and I think it's probably relevant to answer now. Do the attachments count against the word count? Elena, do you know the answer to that?
They don't go towards the word count, but they do go towards your total pages.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Pages, yeah.
I guess at this point, I think I would like to ask each of the panelists for a little bit of last minute advice, if you will. I guess I'll start with Krista, who is again our resident expert and has learned this process and used this workshop to improve their application.
Oh, I've lived this workshop. It's really concerning. My final takeaway, especially for the people who've applied before and didn't win, and you're like, I should have won. Like you kind of feel that little bit of a, wronged, if you will. Write with that level of determination for this year. Like, let that be your motivation. Don't let it be a discouragement. Like, if you really believe you have a story to tell, a superstar worthy story within the state of Delaware, be proud of it, share it. And again, your story is yours. Like, don't think like I'm going up against massive companies, I have no chance of winning. That's not what this is all about. It's really about, identifying the person who told, in my opinion, it's the person who told the best story and the best real story.
Yep. Thank you. Mike.
Yeah, I think this actually comes back to, I honestly remember getting feedback on our application in 2011 when we won, and I saw it firsthand with Krista's application last year. When you're talking about attachments, there's a great question about does it count against your word count, but you have an 8-page limit. When you're answering your questions, obviously you'll probably end up around 6 to 7 pages in your word count, typing everything out. All I did, I had 1 page, and I did I think I did in Word, and I insert pictures. I did like some community service projects from the last couple of years, and I had like Food Bank of Delaware, Cancer Support Community, and I just had pictures of our teams being involved in the community. And then I showed some pictures too. I think it's really important to tell a story about your company. A word of advice, we got a couple of applications last year looking at it. There's one company out of Sussex, Delaware. It was an awesome company. Like, oh my gosh, I never really thought about what they do, but they really didn't dive into what they do. It's like, oh, we make widgets a certain way and it saves lives. I'm like, wow, that's cool. But they didn't go any further than that. Like, tell me about it. Like, I want to learn more about this. This sounds cool. Maybe I should change maybe I should apply there. That sort of thing. So pictures of your company, too, depending on the uniqueness of what you do. I mean, even for Chris, say, WISPIS is applying for this, just seeing that day-to-day interaction with your customers and the projects that you finance, that's really neat stuff to see. And it doesn't have to be extensive, just a 1-page Word doc, throw some photos in there with a little caption of what it is. That goes, for me anyway, as a reviewer, that goes a long way to make me understand what you do, how it's important to the community, and how it's important to your industry.
Excellent, excellent. Grace, you have any last minute advice here?
Just, I think, follow the format, but make it yours. Again, creativity, something that's going to make it stand out and unique to your business. You see applications with images throughout, then you could put them all on 1 page, however works best, for you. Okay.
And Chris.
Yeah, I guess with quite a few of these under my belt, I could think of a couple of anecdotes from over the year. If you are a second timer, use that. You've heard this before, but use the advice you've seen in previous years. There was a company who applied one year that I knew intimately, a very cool company. And, I like, these guys have a shot, got the application, and it fell woefully short. I mean, they might have been last. We gave them the advice. They went back, they worked it in the application, and they were a superstar the next year because they probably had one of the best applications I've ever seen. So definitely heed the advice that you've gotten in years past. The other thing you've heard today is really try to breathe life, into your narrative about what your business does. There was a not-for-profit one time, good company or good not-for-profit, did not win. And back in those days, we had like a post meeting almost where folks would come in, and guy was agitated that it didn't win. And in 2 minutes talking to us, it's like, if you could have got what you just delivered in your 2 minutes of being aggravated, you didn't win into your application, you might have won. So really, your business, you're already a good business, you're already a good not-for-profit. That's why you're sitting here today. So take, this opportunity is about getting all that onto the page. So, really work to do it. We tried to give you a lot of good advice today about metrics, impact, and all those things. So if you weave that in there, I can guarantee you'll be getting discussed at the selection committee. So it's important to get that application, to have all that stuff woven in there, and you will surely be, discussed that day. I can guarantee it.
All right. And first, I want to thank our 4 panelists, Krista, Grace, Chris, and Mike, for joining us today. I think that was some great information. And no one's asked me, but I'm going to throw a little bit of advice out there too. Something Mike touched upon, it was community involvement. And I think back to an application, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, where the owner of the business listed all his individual involvement in the community. It was great. It was good, but it was all about him and not necessarily his business. And I think from a community involvement, when you get to that point, that's good information, but let's also talk about the community, the culture of the company, and how that impacts in the community too. I just think that that one sticks in my mind as something where their company culture probably did impact the community, but the application didn't reflect that. So that's my little bit of parting advice before I turn it over to Helena for some housekeeping things. But thank you everybody for joining us. I really appreciate it, and hopefully this was helpful for you.
All right, thank you, Joe, and thank you to all of our panelists. That was really great information. I think I learned something myself. Before I go into logistics, does anyone have any questions that they want to come off mute or enter into the chat? I say, to whom may I reach out with questions? We are a nonprofit. You can absolutely reach out to me, Helena Rodriguez, hrodriguez@dscc.com, and I will be able to either answer your question or I can direct you to a selection committee member who could answer your question. I will expand on that and say that our selection committee loves being part of this program, and they're always willing to provide their time and resources to applicants. So use them, contact us. If you have questions, don't let them just stay in your own head, ask us. We're here to help, and part of this process is because we want to help shine light on your businesses, but also we want to support the small business community. And that's why this application is so thorough, is because it is supposed to, make you really resonate and think about your business in an expansive way. So we're here to help. We want to help. So reach out if you have questions. Any other questions before I move on?
I just want to make one more point, and you kind of talked about it a little bit. And Krista had a great point. Like she'd think of an idea like 3 a.m. I don't know if I did that, but and jot it down. But you all have your day-to-day responsibilities for your companies too. So don't feel like this is a daunting task. Like maybe we're not going to apply. That seems like a lot of work. Again, when I did it, I had so much other stuff going on in the world and just with work too at the time. I would just take pieces of anything I could get, like the metrics, the financial part, get it to your accounting company, your accounting folks now. Just get it to them now. Say, hey, can you answer these questions for me? Anything that's going to involve someone else. If you have a human resource person that organizes all your community service, send it to them now. Just say, hey, here's this question. Give me some bullets, and I'll put it all together and build on that. That way you're throwing all your feelers out now, and it all come back. And what I would do on a weekly basis, I mean, this isn't due till July. I would just look at one question, type some stuff up, and like Chris said, it's a living document. I just jump back to the next week, add a little more. Hey, can I schedule time with you on Friday, boss, to go through some of this stuff. So don't feel like you have to do it all in one. So we saw that last year, and I'll never forget it. I'm like, this guy did this 15 minutes ago, this application. Just kind of take your time with it. You don't have to do it all in one shot. Just, every week I would work on it like Monday mornings for a couple hours and dive into it. But anything that I didn't know the answer to, I got out early to my teams and my staff to say, I don't know this stuff. You answer this, you answer that, you answer this. And it really helped put it all together. And again, when you go back to kind of give it that final review, that's when I kind of went around to our teams and talked to other folks in the organization about, like, do you think this is a good answer? Because to Chris's point, you can't edit your own work, so have someone else maybe do a peer review of it. And as you have questions too, like Helena said, don't hesitate to reach out to Helena, and she can get a question to me, or to Joe, to Krista, to Chris, whomever, to help you. Hey, I'm stuck on this one thing. What do you think? What are some constructive feedback I could do right now to make it better? It goes a long way. So don't feel like you got to do all one shot, and don't get discouraged either, because it seems like this monster daunting task is going to be really hard. It's really not that bad when you take your time and spread it out. That's it.
No, that was great. You can feel the passion behind this committee. I won't say I'll play favorites, but I will say that this committee is always really happy to be here and very passionate and involved in this process. So take advantage of them. All right. Before I move on, anyone else?
Actually, I just thought of one little thing. Because in my previous life, I was in the nonprofit world or working with nonprofits. And I think for the nonprofits involved, they kind of approach it like they would a grant application, and they all have practice with that. And like, by backing up with you, just say, don't say, well, we're really great. We're in the community a lot. Like, you've got to put the data behind the statements. So general statements get a giant thumbs down. Supported statements with data get a giant thumbs up. So that's all.
Yeah, great. All right. So just a few housekeeping logistics. The application is now open on the dscc.com website. It is through SurveyMonkey, so you can go in and start your application, and you can edit it over the next few months right there in SurveyMonkey. I will say, as a pro tip though, it's great to have a backup in Word, just in case anything ever happens. Also, you're able to track your word count on Word, but I would encourage you to start your application at least through SurveyMonkey so we can see that you're actually interested. It's helpful to me and the staff to know who's applying so we can periodically reach out, provide support, all of that. So definitely let us know if you plan to apply or start that process, but have a backup in Word as well. Also, so the deadline is July 16th at noon. If you're providing supplemental attachments, you can send them to me directly. The deadline for that is also July 16th at noon. At that time, I will send them to the selection committee. The chamber is hands off. It's all in the selection committee's hands, and they will review them. Then we meet at the end of August to determine the winners, and then you'll be contacted. That date is not determined yet, but I will keep everyone posted so that you know when to expect your call or email with your results. What's next? Oh, save the date, November 3rd, 2021. We have a date for the Superstars winner award ceremony. It is actually going to be at the Hotel DuPont with a hybrid option to be virtual if you want, whichever you prefer. Hybrid, I mean, in person or digital, they'll both be provided to you, is the current plan. I think that is it. If you have any questions, you can absolutely reach out to me. I just want to thank Joe, Krista, Grace, Chris, and Mike. You're all fantastic today, and I'm so happy to see returning faces and new faces to this application process in the workshop. Just like Chris has said, don't be discouraged if you applied before, but also don't be discouraged if it's your first time. It's gone both ways. We've had first-time applicants win, and we've had returning applicants win. You never really know. So with that, I will say have a wonderful day, and reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye.